Servus and welcome to another episode of the Pro Hockey Pod, episode 76. I'm trying to roll them out right now. Obviously, we got some time here, so I thought I'd sit down with one of our players here on Mannheim. We were joking off camera, two bald guys sitting together discussing hockey, so we'll see how many views this gets. But this guy was actually born in New York, New York, so can talk to him a little bit about that. But also a guy that went to college art like myself. Has worked his way up through the pro ranks and now is in his second year over here in Germany. We played against him last year in Augsburg. I have to say, I really enjoyed his game and especially his hands in the shootout. And may or may not have mentioned that I think he should be an Adler, and here he is this year. So happy that he's joining us. And welcome to the Pro Hockey Pod, Luke Esposito.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Quite an intro, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I always start off just kind of like where you grew up, like kind of what your childhood was like. Like you mentioned you were born in New York, New York, your family or your parents were living there. Like what's kind of like your first childhood memory that comes to mind?
Yeah, I kind of moved around a good bit when I was young. I was born in Manhattan, but I didn't live there long. We moved to Florida when I was only 6 months, and we lived there for about 18 months. My family managed a roller hockey team, in a professional roller hockey team, and then when I was 2, we moved to Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I lived there till I was 10. So my first hockey memories were mostly roller hockey, occasionally visiting family and would get on the ice, but for the most part, it was roller hockey growing up.
That actually explains like why I think like you have such good hands. Like, anyone I've known that has grown up playing roller hockey, that seems to translate over to the ice game. But I'll ask you that because I obviously didn't know that. Like, what was it like on the roller hockey side? Like your parents or your family managed a pro hockey team. So what was kind of maybe some differences, some similarities from pro hockey?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like an early business venture trying to get that whole league started, but obviously my family had some experience in professional hockey, both from a my grandpa was a longtime coach and then got in the agency business, and um, him as well as my uncles played professionally as well. So they had some experience, and it was a pretty short-lived experience. I think professional roller hockey didn't quite take off in the States the way maybe they were hoping. But um, then moving to South Carolina when we started playing with my brothers, obviously it was a super small island, so it was um, honestly just like a organized minor rec league. Nothing really too complicated. It wasn't travel at that point or anything. So yeah, nothing too fancy.
You brought up your family, kind of your family tree there, which obviously for anyone who will Google you, they'll see it right away. But you have some I'd say very good pro hockeyness in your blood. Obviously, your uncle there is Mark Messier, the legendary Mark Messier, who played a long time for the Oilers, Rangers, Canucks there at the end. Also, his brother there, Paul, I believe, who played it 6 years in Mannheim. Funny enough, that was kind of cool. But what was it like kind of growing up and maybe having that influence or maybe that help there from both of those uncles who obviously both had very long and professional playing careers?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because we grew up in such a place that really didn't have any hockey around. Um, really didn't have much of a sports scene at all. But obviously, as you get older, you kind of start to grasp the magnitude of it all, and not just my uncle Mark, but my uncle Paul playing long professional career, and then going back, my grandpa played back in the WHA, and he had a long career himself. So just kind of as you get older, trying to grasp that, and then mix that with not really having a chance to play ice hockey till I was 10. So um, it was definitely maybe like not the traditional hockey upbringing, but my parents never forced us into anything. It was always something we wanted to do, and we played lots of sports growing up, but hockey was our favorite. And not having a ton of opportunities in South Carolina when I turned 10 years old, it kind of was looking like we're going to want to play hockey. So that was when we moved up north to Connecticut, and then things kind of took off from there. We got to know the travel scene and the craziness of youth hockey in the U.S. these days. But yeah, it was not the traditional hockey upbringing, but definitely knowing that that's kind of your background, it was definitely something to lean on.
And you mentioned too, like kind of moving there to South Carolina, and not having like, for us in Canada at least, like you have like there's minor hockey organizations everywhere. Like and then you have the triple A, single A, double A, sometimes two levels of single A just because there's so many kids who want to play. Like, you coming from maybe more of the roller hockey background to being 10 years old or so and finally getting on the ice. Like for you growing up, what was kind of like your minor hockey structure or your rep hockey structure, I would say?
Yeah, my first year up in Connecticut, I just tried out for the local AAA team in
Mm-hmm.
my in the town I was living in, the Greenwich Blues out of Dorothy Hamill Arena, and just played my first year there. And then the next year, the best team in the area was Mid Fairfield Blues, and the next year I tried out for them and was lucky enough to make it. And then I played for them from the age of 11 until I left to go play junior, so 18.
Okay.
So and it's similar to what it is now. I think it's progressed a little bit more now. They have seems like they have double A, triple A, and they have this elite level as well, which it was a little simpler back then. But um, yeah, it was just typical travel minor hockey. It was a good triple A program. The best players in that area played for that team, and I just stuck with the same organization all the way through until once you get into high school, it changes a little bit with the prep school scene there. But yeah, as far as club hockey goes, that's who I played for growing up.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it, the prep school scene there when you got to high school. So you played at Brunswick School there. As I've mentioned multiple times on this podcast, someone who's not from that side, like high school in Canada is almost like you have to, at least in Canada, you have to choose between you're either going to play high school or you're going to play like triple A. Like, and most people play high school. It's more one or two practices a week. You play against the other high schools on the weekends, and it's just kind of like something for them to do. They're more focused on living their lives. Where AAA for us was like we want to get drafted, OHL, etc. So, kind of break it down for me, like your experience and kind of where you were, like the U.S. prep school scene.
Yeah, so when you get into grade 9, you're eligible to try out for your whatever high school you're at, and it's the prep school scene is what dominates New England, but it's different all over the country. I mean, depending on where you are, the high school scene is similar to what you said in Canada. It's for kids that want to play hockey but not necessarily pursue hockey. If they wanted to, they would stick with their full year round AAA team. But in New England, prep school hockey's pretty much dominated that area for the last, I would say, at least 30 years. And so what happens is you play for your club team from August until October, mid October, and then mid October there's tryouts for your prep school team. They pick the team, and then the club scene goes on a break through the winter, and everybody plays for their prep school team for whatever it is, 3-4 months, and then if at the end of the club season in the fall um, you won your region and qualified for nationals, then you'd get back together with your club
Okay.
team in the spring. So what they call it split season. It's a little bit confusing, but once you're there, you kind of start to understand, and everybody does the same thing. And what it turns into is these club teams essentially become all-star teams of prep school, picking
Mm-hmm.
the 5 best guys from um, Brunswick, or the 5 best guys from Salisbury, and then 2 people from Westminster and 2 people from wherever. And then Connecticut will have a couple good teams, and Massachusetts will have a couple good teams. And then those are the teams that are really trying to get qualified for nationals out of the New England area.
And did you always know, like we'll get to obviously where you went to school. It was very prestigious, and I'm very curious about that. But was it always your plan, maybe growing up when you got to high school, to go the school route, the NCAA route, or had you also growing up like me in Canada, like the OHL is thrown at us from such a young age. We can go to the games. You idolize being there. They seem like NHL players to us growing up. I grew up in Peterborough, legendary Peterborough Petes. So that's kind of the route that we're kind of informed about first. And I didn't really know much about NCAA until later on. But like, was it the same for you? Had you ever thought about going that route, or was it strictly I want to go to school and get my schooling done?
Yeah, no, for me it was always school, and some of that was because growing up I wasn't the best player on any of my teams, and I knew I would not have had a chance to make an OHL roster, or any major junior roster. So, but then on top of that was these tournaments we would go to, even from the ages of 13, 14, they would a lot of times be in a college hockey area, and our coaches would arrange for us to go to games. And I have memories back when I was before high school going to a Boston College game, and I remember seeing, I think it was Nathan Gerby play, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I wanted to go to Boston College from the minute I saw that. And then it was kind of interesting, it's happening now too. I know there's rules and regulations about how old kids have to be before they can talk to coaches and whatever, but when I was 13, 14 years old before high school, the best players were already committed to
Mm-hmm.
Boston College or Michigan or Ivy, wherever it was. And like I said, I was never the best player on any of my teams, and all of my teammates from my club teams were starting to get commitments to great schools all over the country. So my goal was always just get a D1 offer and pursue that.
I remember that like growing up, like seeing, and I feel like even now it was more common before the major junior rule change, but you would see these kids playing AAA somewhere or prep school at 16 years old, and they're committing to BC or BU, and I'm just like, man, like how the job these schools must be doing to be able to pick the talent that early. I guess it would be some guys who stand out, but like me and you, I believe we were late bloomers and needed time to grow there. But you end up playing 4 years there, I believe, at Brunswick, and then after that, you made the jump to the BCHL there in Chilliwack. So 19 years old again, like I'll say a 19-year-old rookie in quotations, but your first taste of Tier 2 junior hockey, obviously BCHL is a very known league, probably the best one in Canada, I would say. That one in the USHL comes to mind in North America, but seemed to be a easy transition for you. I believe, according to my research, our elite prospects, you won Rookie of the Year, and you also had the most assists in the league, which doesn't surprise me, a first-team All-Star. So maybe talk about that adjustment for you jumping from the school route to the BCHL and obviously that season.
Yeah, I think a lot of the players that I was playing with on the club team that were committed had started to, this kind of idea started for the longest time. It was you'd do a post grad year and be a 19-year-old playing prep school hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as the USHL got better and the BCHL got better, these colleges realized that kids coming from there were more suited to be an impact freshman than a kid coming out of prep school. So they started having kids do a year of junior in between high school and college. So it was kind of an idea that had popped into my head and kind of come up on my radar and my parents' radar. And it was a little different for me because the prep school I went to, Brunswick, has now become more of a powerhouse in terms of athletics. But at the time, we were, a good athletic program, but a really good academic program. And so for me, graduating, not having decided to go to college, I think I was one of 90 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only kid in my graduating class that wasn't going to college the next year. So it was definitely a change, but it wasn't necessarily a huge hockey school. So, it's not something that the hockey world's, I feel like, not understood by people unless you're in the hockey world.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, yeah, I was just deciding between USHL and BCHL, and I needed another year. At the time, I had no Division One offers, and um, my coach in Chilliwack had played for my grandpa in the AJHL back in the 1970s or 60s even. So Harvey Schmiel. So it was unbelievable. My parents did a little research, and my grandpa got in touch with him, and we went out there and visited, and it was incredible. And then I knew that's where I was going the next fall, and like you said, it turned out to be a great year. Exceeded my expectations, and by Christmas, I had a couple offers to choose from, and um, I remember actually calling Coach Donato at Harvard, and I had visited in grade 10 kind of as a favor to one of the teams that I was on. A couple guys went and visited, and I kind of tagged along, and we visited BC and Harvard that day. And I wanted to go to BC still, but obviously Harvard and being in Boston, and I love the city of Boston, and obviously a historic program in its own right. So when I was choosing between schools, I hadn't heard anything from Harvard, and I actually called Coach Donato, and he flew out and saw me play and offered that night. And so that was kind of for me. Once we kind of talked it through, it was easy decision for me.
Before we jump into the Harvard side of it, I wanted to kind of go back to what you were talking about as what is very common in the hockey world, but isn't common to people in the normal world or maybe other athletes, is that kind of, we'll say, gap year between going to school. Like I know I did it myself. I graduated high school and I still played one more year junior before going, and it's kind of that maturity thing, but also like having a fun year, I would say too, like not having to worry about school and stuff. But um, especially today, I feel like there's always an emphasis on trying to get to the highest place as quick as you can versus going when you're ready. And I've had this argument or topic discussed with many people on here about maybe conquering or dominating the level you're at before taking the next step. A lot of times you see these athletes that just want to keep going as high as they can, as quick as they can, and then they get to a level where they're not ready, and then they end up getting pushed down the pole, or maybe their development stops because they don't get the ice time they need or the playing situations they need. But someone like yourself who at the time didn't have a scholarship and then went and played there and then immediately was starting to get offers, like it obviously is another example of how everyone's path is different, and it doesn't, just because your buddies might be getting scholarships at 18 doesn't mean that if you go at 19 or 20 that you're any less of a hockey player. Like it just shows that timing is everything, and also people develop at different times and sometimes quicker than others. But yeah, you obviously had a very good year, as I mentioned, and then I mean, like when I think of Harvard, like we'll talk about Harvard here for a second. I'm just gonna check, make sure this thing's going. We're good. Making me nervous. Harvard first thing that comes to mind for me is a Social Network, the movie. So I think of that and like campus and obviously they developed Facebook and stuff there. But like going to Harvard, like having that on your resume is obviously like having a gold stamp on it. And I'm just thinking like, how did you over those years like balance the schoolwork and the being an athlete as well? Because that's something like a lot of these people who go to Harvard, and there's a lot of athletes who go, but a lot of people, normal people who go, like they have time to go to class and then be in the library all day and all night, where you as an athlete would have to, hey, I got to go get my weightlifting in, or hey, I got to go to practice, or hey, I'm going on a roadie this weekend. So like how was the adjustment for you first when you first got there, and then obviously juggling the being an athlete and also being a scholar?
I think as far as the adjustment goes, the only weird part was coming off of a full year of junior hockey where I wasn't doing school. So that was, maybe the first couple of weeks. Or I actually remember in the summer I had to write an essay where they place you in the proper level English class. And I remember honestly having a bit of a panic attack, or my parents might have called it a temper tantrum. Just saying to them, like, what am I thinking? I'm not going to be able to do this. I should have gone to an easier school. But it turned out they made that assignment very difficult so they could see if you could do it. And what ended up happening for me was my high school, Brunswick, really prepared me really well for that. And at the time, you obviously don't know it. You think it's just homework and work for the sake of working. But when I got to college, for me, it was actually easier than high school, because I wasn't in school. I wasn't in class from 8 a.m. to 3:30, 4 p.m. like I was in high school. I was in class from maybe 8 a.m. to noon, maybe 1 o'clock. And then I had an hour or two to get my lunch done and get any work done. Then you're down at the athletic facilities for 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it is that day. And then you had some time at night to get work done. And I was, because of, I think, my high school, I was really good at managing my time. And I chose a major of sociology, of something that I was really good at writing papers and doing research, and I wasn't as good of a test taker. So for me, um, writing was easier, and I could really bide my time. And if I had 2 hours to do something, I didn't have to wait for help from somebody. I could get into the book, research, and figure it out myself. And that was huge. I was always a good time manager. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, trying to manage athletics and academics.
Seems like pretty cool campus too. Like obviously, as I said, the film there kind of goes through it a bit, but historic as you mentioned. And like I did a little research and just kind of looking at like some of the teammates you had, and it's crazy to see like a lot of them have gone on to have very successful like playing careers as well. Like obviously there was guys there before you, but the guys that you played with, Tyler Moy, who was on this podcast, that it was awesome talking to him. Obviously Alex Kerfoot is in the NHL, Jimmy Vesey, Ryan Donato, Colin Blackwell, Adam Fox, who, big star defenseman on the Rangers, and obviously John Marino. Like it's a lot of guys plus yourself that have obviously gone on to have long and profiting pro careers, I would say, and you guys had some good years there too. Like you won the ECAC championship twice, which is a great feat for you guys and anyone in their division. How was it playing for Coach Granato there? Like, did he maybe help you through those 4 years and improving every year and help you become kind of the player you are today?
Yeah, for sure. Teddy was unreal in a lot of ways, but I think his biggest asset to his players and developing players for pro was he he had all of the tips, like all the little stuff that like a lot of head coaches maybe don't get into that relationship with the players. Teddy had so much knowledge that he wanted to share with guys. He was staying on the ice after practice with guys, or just like working on little stuff before practice. He had little stuff that maybe at the time you wouldn't think of, and then now that I've played pro for now my 8th season, you look back and say, oh wow, like these little things he was teaching you are still relevant now. So um, yeah, it was an amazing 4 years under Coach Donato, and we had some awesome assistants too, and Coach Pearl and Albie O'Connell and Rob Rassi. So the staff was awesome, um, and I think like you mentioned there, the biggest thing was and one of the reasons I chose Harvard over some other schools was the incoming class of freshmen for me was an incredible class, and at the time I was a little worried that I was going to get buried, but I'm glad I took on the challenge because what it did is surround me by incredible players. And now you look at the amount of guys that coming out of that 3-4 year stretch that are playing pro and um, practice every day in the weight room every day was really competitive. And it shows why we had some really good years there.
I wanted to bring up Moy because I've heard from multiple people, and I'm sure he was the same then. And obviously, talking to him, like it's one of those sayings, like everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, sure," like everybody says this, but I don't know if there's a guy who loves hockey more than him and who wants to get better every single second of every day. Like hearing stories of guys who play with him, like one year they lost in the finals of the championship in Switzerland. And the next day he's in the gym freaking deadlifting 350 or 400 or something. Like just always wants to get better, always out there doing the extra work. And sometimes I think with the older, um, kind of the old age of like, he might have been kind of made fun of for that, for wanting to get better and stuff. But I just like listening to him and just how he would talk about the game of hockey and how he sees it. Like it was quite knowledgeable for me and like kind of interesting to see it from his view. But like any funny stories come to mind of him, or do you have, or just kind of what I said, like a guy that just loved the game and always wanted to get better?
Oh, I have a lot of funny stories about Moisey, but we were actually roommates for my sophomore, junior, and senior year. Our sophomore year, the campus, like you said, at Harvard's pretty amazing, but it's old, and the dorms were undergoing renovation, one dorm each year, and our dorm didn't get renovated in the time I was there. So we were living in a uh, 2 bedroom with a little common area, and there were 4 of us. So each little bedroom that barely had room for one twin, we had to jam 2 twin beds into it. And so that year, our beds were like maybe 12 inches apart. You had to shuffle through. So you really get to know a guy. But Moisey, like you said, you hit the nail on the head there. He's one of the hardest working guys I've ever played with. He's actually one of those guys where sometimes you have to you have to pull him off the ice or out of the gym because he'll work himself to death. Like he just, like you said, he wants to get better, and it's paid off for him. Like he's had an incredible career, and yeah, he was a guy that even at that level, he's still, I think still he's still is so far above a lot of guys in terms of work ethic that he does get a hard time about it. But just the way he handled it made you love him even more. And made you respect how hard he works for sure.
No, and there's a reason that he's had the success he's had, especially in Rappy there. And at the end of the day, like he has a goal, and like we were talking about on the podcast, like he really wants to make Team Switzerland one day for the World Championships. And it seems like every year right now, like he might be like one of the last guys because once the NHL guys come back, like he's kind
Yeah.
of lower on the totem pole at the moment, which is not to say he's not a good player because that guy tears it up every year, but you can just see the fire in his eyes to make it. I really hope that he does. But back to you there. So after spooning with Moisey for 3 years, as I mentioned, 4 years at Harvard, you guys won two championships there, and then you end up signing a pro contract. Was it always your plan, after Harvard, that you wanted to try the pro route? And one thing I like talking to someone like yourself about, like someone who wasn't drafted to the NHL, when you sign these contracts, you're starting the grind, as I like to call it. Like, you're playing some games in the AHL, then having to go down to the coast, kind of getting your feet wet for a bit there. Like, how was that first maybe year or two for you adjusting to the pro game and kind of learning your role within these teams?
Yeah, I'd say my first 2 years pro were a pretty big adjustment. As far as signing goes, I had a nice template laid out in front of me. 1 year before me, Kyle Crisculo graduated, and similar story, undersized guy who wasn't drafted and signed with Grand Rapids and actually won the Calder Cup that year. Had an incredible year. Um, and still tearing it up in the American League and has had NHL games as recent as last year, I believe. So I had kind of a little template there, and I ended up signing with the same GM that signed him for the next year. And when I went there after our season ended, on what they call an amateur tryout to play a couple games and kind of get the sense of what the speed's going to be like before you go home and start your training, I didn't pass the physical because my shoulder was so bad, and I ended up having shoulder surgery that spring, and then rehabbed all summer. And kind of looking back, I think I rushed through it to get back in time for rookie tournament. Um, and it was an awesome experience with rookie tournament stuff, but um, I ended up playing like I was okay that year, and the shoulders held on well. But I think I went in maybe a little tentative, and now what I've become as a pro, I've seen how important for somebody, whatever skill level you want to say I am, like I know looking at my game, I need to be competitive every night. And I think I was a little hesitant that year coming off of shoulder surgery. And so the learning curve was huge for me. I probably wasn't ready. And I got sent down to the East Coast League, and I think that was really important for me. I found kind of the like love for the game again, and the group of guys in Toledo and the coach Dan Watson was incredible. And I ended up playing 14 games down there that year, and got called back up and played the last 30 games of the year. And um, I wasn't looking back, I wasn't at the level I wanted to be at, but I think those 30 games were massive for me to kind of try to figure out what I needed to do to stick in the American League. Um, and then I signed a PTO with I got to go to Edmonton's rookie camp the next fall with Jay Woodcroft, and that was a huge turning point for my career. And he gave me an incredible opportunity, and um, I stopped worrying about how many points I scored in junior and how many points my line mate scored in college and all that. And I just, um, whatever role he gave me, I just tried to embody that. And um, I think the interesting thing now playing, finishing up like my 8th year pro, is we were all power play guys at some point. We were all point scorers, the leading scorer of our team at some point. But on any given team now in professional hockey, there's got to be a bottom six. There's got to be a penalty killer. There's got to be a fourth line. And so I think if you look at it now, at some point, somebody had a decision to make. Either they were going to learn how to check or they were going to be done playing. And that's what that second year really was for me, is just embodying that kind of checking role. And um, even though I've had a little more success scoring in Europe, that's kind of something that at this point I don't think can be taken out of my game.
No, and you raised such a good point. Like, firstly, shortly, I wanted to say recently going on a scouting trip to North America, the first place we went was Grand Rapids. So like being able to see that barn, and obviously they have years of history of being a strong team and the cool little city. And our scout there had played for them too, so he was showing us the places he used to go 30 years ago and stuff. So it was cool to see that. But you mentioned such a good point, which I think a lot of people don't understand. And one thing that I've noticed since being in Europe is you'll have teams where there's the elite prospect scouting, and then there's teams where they actually, watch the video, they call scouts, they call people coaches who coach people. So for me, you're a perfect example because the league is full of like everyone in that league can play hockey, and like you mentioned, a lot of them for the most part probably were at the levels before they were power play guys or were top six guys or whatever it was. And they obviously have to adjust to different roles depending on the depth of team, depending on, how many guys are on NHL deals and all that, like stuff that some of us can't control. And someone like yourself, like I remember speaking to someone about you and they were like, "Oh, I remember him from Bakersfield." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Yeah, he was like a third, fourth line, like hardworking, like shit disturber." And I'm like to me, it was like cool hearing that because I'm like looking at you now on Augsburg, and I'm like, well, he's leading this team in scoring. Every time he gets a shootout, the goalie's jock is in the stands. So like, it's crazy to see that like, the difference in people knowing you from North America to what you are in Europe now. But it just proves that, you were able to during that time. Maybe I don't want to say redefine your game, but you just like understood and accepted your role and knew every night you were gonna work your ass off and be whatever you needed to be that night. And I think deep down you also knew in the back of your mind that if given power play opportunity, if given a shootout, like you would have the confidence that it's like this part of your game too is also still there.
Yeah, I yeah, my first 2 years were a massive um learning experience, and I think you nailed it there. Like I went into that first year not knowing what I was going to be like as a pro. Maybe I was going to score, maybe I was going to check. I didn't know if I was a power play guy or a penalty kill guy, and the coaching staff that year was incredible as well in Grand Rapids, and Todd Nelson, and I learned a lot that year. I obviously you don't anticipate your rookie year winding up in the East Coast League, and I think that was a big pill to swallow at the time. But looking back, it was great for me. And yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It was just I think at some point, like I said, guys have a decision to make, and um, you have to decide whether you're willing to do it or not. And the AHL is a really interesting league, even as it has over the years gotten younger with more development side and more prospects. A lot of those kids are coming out of junior hockey where they were the top scorer, and now they have to learn and say, "There's six forwards on this team that are better than me," or "There's you know four defensemen that are better than me. I'm not going to play on the power play. Can I find a way to stay in this league?" And that's what my second year was all about, is finding a way to stay in the league and stay in the lineup. And it's interesting now, looking through any roster, there's no matter what, there's going to be three, four, up to 10 guys on that team trying to figure out how they're going to stay in professional hockey.
I think one cool example for our league is, obviously a rival of us, but is Ty Ronning. He was a guy that maybe not he didn't get the opportunity, and I believe he was in Iowa and stuff and up and down, and now he's come over here to Berlin and lights the league up and stuff. So just
Yeah,
another
decent
underside
year.
guy. Yeah, decent year, I'll say. But we're not going to talk about him. This is your
No.
episode. No, but back to your career there. Like after the years there in Grand Rapids, you end up going to Bakersfield for 5 years, as I mentioned. And one person that also was on this podcast quickly, I will say, because he was in the middle, I think, between getting to classes, I believe, or getting work done. It was a quick 20-minute interview, but was JF Uli there, who you had there, and like I remember talking to you about him in the locker room before I got him on, and you just said like obviously a great guy, full of stories of him, but someone that also was important to kind of your development and your couple of years there with him in Bakersfield.
Yeah, he was the forward coach when I was in Bakersfield for I know I had him for 3 years for sure. But just an awesome guy. Like he really embodied that assistant coach that can have the relationship with the players, um, and keeps things light. And then when it comes down to getting down to work, obviously he had tons of experience and is a great coach. He was the power play coach as well. And while I was in a checking role, I thanks to him and Woody, I was able to at least I started just being in the meetings. And then when somebody went down, I got a chance, and I learned a lot actually under him of the bumper role on the 1-3-1. I kind of quickly learned, and especially in that league, I wasn't going to be a half wall guy. So I figured it was important for me to kind of learn the bumper, and I think it's a very cerebral position, and so I think it's one of those things that really can be learned through watching video and watching other players. So yeah, he was super helpful for that, and looking back at something, I'll always kind of connect with him.
Yeah, no, he seemed like a pretty good guy when I had him on the podcast there. I'm sure there's some stories that are for off the podcast that would be about him. Those always those whatever it's called, players, coaches.
Yeah.
They're always good to have around. So after those 5 years there, you end up making the trek over here. So you end up deciding to come to Europe and you sign Augsburg there. I'm always curious to kind of ask, like, what made you decide, hey, I'm gonna go give Europe a try? Just because, like, it's interesting talking to athletes. Like, a lot of guys do it later in their career. A lot of guys do it younger or wish they did it younger. Like, you just get to a point where it's like, hey, I want to try something different. And so many guys who come over here end up saying to like us, or I hear them say like, man, I wish I came earlier. Like, the lifestyle here is awesome. Like, it doesn't matter what country they're in, but like the less games, you're not playing 3-3s or 4-5s and all that stuff. But what ended up being your decision to come over to Germany and sign in Augsburg?
Yeah, I think it was, it's as for most guys, it was a number of things. One was I had reached veteran status in the American League, which is I think 320 games played or something like that, and each team's only allowed 5 or 6 of them. So I knew that summer that was going to factor into getting a contract. I had also kind of reached a stage where it was a lot of years of starting every training camp on the fourth line. Didn't matter who they signed. I knew that's where I was going to start, and then grinding my way up, earning playing time only for guys to get sent down around playoff time and change things. Um, you had mentioned earlier, my uncle Paul played here in Mannheim for 6 or 7 years. So it Europe and the DEL was something that I had talked about a long time with my family about, and it was kind of always that, oh yeah, maybe at some point I'll wind up over there. Um, and then so I remember it would have been summer 2023. After that season, I called Jay Woodcroft, who hadn't been my coach for 18 months, but had always told me, if I needed some advice or wanted to talk, to call him. Just an unbelievable human, and somebody I owe a lot to in my career. And I called him and had a really good conversation. And he connected me actually with one of his brothers who had more experience in Europe. And um, that was kind of my introduction to the European scene, a European agent, somebody that was going to help me kind of see what the opportunities were here, um, and then things moved really quickly. Within a couple days, he had an offer, and within another couple hours, I had to make a decision, or they were going to move somewhere else. And I remember I was in Connecticut running hockey schools and had to fly back to California, move out of our house, and actually, my wife did most of the moving. I had to get to training camp, so um, so a lot of thanks to her for putting up with a pretty crazy life the last couple of years, especially. But yeah, I think like a lot of guys, it doesn't just happen like that. It's one of those things that you're kind of leaning that way for a little bit in the back of your mind, and then suddenly it happens in a flash. And but like you said, I am very happy, and I kind of do wish I came over earlier at times.
No, it's always interesting to talk because like everyone, like, I feel like the at least for us growing up when we were training with older guys and they're going to Europe, like there was just that like negative spin to it of, oh,
100%.
you're starting the Europe trend, oh, your
Yeah.
career is
Yep.
over, and like here's the end for you, go make a couple bucks. And nowadays it's actually the opposite. There's a lot of guys who come over and have good years and then they gain interest again. It's almost like a rejuvenation for their career. They get on the eyes of scouts from NHL teams or whatever, and they can go back to North America and have another chance. So, um, obviously you came over, as I mentioned, to Augsburg. I know definitely, like personally, the first game we played you guys, you caught my eye right away for being a small guy that played like he was 6'4", wasn't afraid to get in the mix there, played hard, and then also had the skill set of, setting guys up. And then, as I mentioned, I can't remember what game it was, if it was the two games in Augsburg or the one in Mannheim and the one in Augsburg where we went to the shootout. And I remember you doing the move, and I couldn't believe that you did the move. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy's sick. Like, what is he doing on Augsburg? But, obviously a good year for you, and probably a good introduction to German hockey as well. Like Augsburg, great. Great. I love their arena. I love the city there. I actually like their colors too. Like the logo and stuff has always been something from my childhood. But it seemed like a good fit for you that first year.
Yeah, I have really fond memories of Augsburg. Like you said, the city's awesome. For my wife and I coming over our first year in Europe, didn't really know what to expect. It was a really couldn't have asked for a better year. Obviously, finishing last in the standings was not how we wanted that to go. But as far as an introduction into just the lifestyle here, a really authentic European feeling city, which was kind of what you dream of coming over, um, and then the biggest thing was just getting a really good opportunity for a lot of playing time. Um, I was more than just a penalty killer checker who filled in on the power play when somebody was injured. I was, for the first time in a long time in my career, I was one of the go-to guys, and um, that feeling is kind of like intoxicating again when you haven't had it in a long time. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I wish we could have done more for the city. I'm really glad they're still in the top league here. I think the fans deserve that, and the like you said, the building's incredible, and yeah, I have, like I said, really good memories from there, and wish all the best for the organization.
Yeah, I'm happy they stayed as well. Hopefully they can get working on their roster for next year. And yeah, obviously I know Larry Mitchell decently well. They're another Burlington guy, so I've always looked up to him, and he's a very well known name in German hockey. So I don't have any doubt in my mind there. And after that year, we scooped you. You came to the Adler Mannheim here. Obviously, I think you've been enjoying it. One of the perks of being on the Adler, it's funny that we'll go here first, but I just know it's your passion is, the golf membership, So it's always curious to me. I like bringing this up just because I am not a golf guy by any means. Like I watch Full Swing now, so like I'm like, okay, I don't mind it, but like to get me on the course, it takes a lot, and I just know I'm basically burning money. But where did this kind of passion for this, I would say, second sport or hobby, whatever you want to call it, like where did this come from? Because like we've talked multiple times about like me doing an hour commute in every day, and you're like, what are you listening to? Like podcast music? And I'm like, yeah, like this, or like hockey ones. You're like, man, I don't do that. Just golf podcast 24/7. So like maybe talk about your love for the game of golf, and yeah, just kind of how it became about, and maybe the peacefulness of it. I've also heard you're very good, so that obviously helps in liking something.
I think it started because my family played a ton. Hilton Head is like probably world renowned for golf, South Carolina, but Hilton Head specifically, very touristy, lot of golf courses. And so growing up, my uncles, my mom, my dad, my grandpa played a ton, and my grandpa would take me to the course, and I never liked it much. Like I think most of us were super competitive, so it was not something I was very good at. And then when I turned pro, I realized guys really like playing, and I had played enough that I could go out and play with them. And then after my first year pro, I went back down to Hilton Head. My brothers worked there that summer, and I worked at my golf game, and went full on into it, and would um, hit balls every day, and then signed in California for 5 years, and golfing 12 months of the year helped my game. And then you get a little better, and then you get more addicted to it. And so it's kind of just become this hobby slash addiction slash pain in the butt for my wife. But it's yeah, I think there's something to be said for getting away from the rink and getting hockey out of your head. And um, I'm a competitive guy, so like when I leave the rink, I want to do something competitive a lot of days. And some guys like to play video games. I'm horrible at video games, so for me, it's if I can get out on the golf course, ideally the weather is decent, and yeah, it's been pretty great. And when I signed in Mannheim, Jordan Schwartz sent me a text a couple days after, and we got talking about golf. And I told him I would have signed for a lot less money if I knew how good the golf setup was.
We'll have to keep that in mind for the next contract there. But no, it's honestly crazy like how it's like hockey and golf just go one and one. Like most hockey guys, it's hockey during the year, golf when they can, and then the summers it's like go to the gym in the morning, hit the links in the afternoon. So yeah, happy that you have a passion like that. I'm more of the video games guy, so we wouldn't connect that way, but it's all good. Last thing about the golf game there, who's maybe your favorite player in the game right now, or a couple of guys that you like watching every weekend?
Uh, my brother and I find ourselves cheering for Rory a lot, which is he's a little polarizing with everything going on, but yeah, I think I'd say I cheer hardest for Rory, and big Max Homa fan too, but he's having a tough year, which kind of makes it even more interesting to follow along and see if he can dig it out. But
Masters is in 2 weeks, isn't it? Two,
yeah,
three
two or
weeks.
three
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah,
I always love those commercials. It just makes you think of like summer and
yeah,
getting ready. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's almost time to go home.
Yeah.
Couple more for you here. You've obviously been very generous with your time. Trying to look here for like we kind of talked about your playing style before, but like, did you have someone maybe growing up that you like to watch that you wanted to model your game after? Like obviously your uncle there had a very uh hard style as well, like skill, but could do the grit game. But was there someone maybe through your childhood growing up that you watched on TV and was like, hey, I this is who I like to watch. This I want to play like him?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, you get asked this question every now and then. Now that you're playing pro, but I think it's hard to say going back to when I was a kid. I don't think anybody pictures themselves being like a gritty, third line role player. So I would say like I loved Nick Backstrom growing up. And then I quickly realized I wasn't Nick Backstrom. And I loved Sidney Crosby, and then quickly realized you're not Sidney Crosby. But I think what watching those players does is there's still so many little things you can pick up. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to, do the open hips and fend the guy off like Crosby does. But there's still a lot you can learn from even stick positioning and skating style and little stuff like that, or watching Backstrom on the half wall, or um, just little stuff he does with his blade, or head fakes or stuff like that. And then looking back, I think my uncle and the rougher side of his game combined with I remember being in maybe grade 8 or just getting into high school. We were big Ranger fans at the time, living just outside New York City. We loved the New York crowd really embraces the role player, and I think maybe that was the early part of my life where I started seeing like, well, these guys are really important too. And we loved Ryan Holweg, and we loved Jed Ortmeyer, and it was also cool that we were able to be around the room every now and then and get to meet these guys and see how personable they are. And then they'd go on the ice and be super scary. And so I think kind of there was never one guy for me, but I've always been a bit of a hockey nerd. I love watching hockey, and I think there's so much that can be learned from watching and picking out different guys. And then as I've progressed as a pro, there's more undersized guys where I would kind of watch their shifts and see what I could
Mhm.
learn from them. And I know scoring's never been a really natural thing for me, so I thought that was something I could really learn from. So watching guys like Victor Arvidsson at one point, I watched him a good bit, or Yanni Gord, or just like these undersized guys who you wouldn't, see him step on the ice, you wouldn't think that's a guy we got to watch out for, and suddenly they're um, not just an important checker on their team, but an important
Mhm.
scorer as well.
When you were going to the Ranger games there, were you also keeping an eye on Dallas Aikens there when he was there's a funny story. I forget whose book it's in Messier's book about the one time like Dallas obviously was a defenseman, kind of like a call-up guy, but played a lot of NHL games as well. And the one time he was called up to the Rangers, they had so many injuries that he had to go play forward. And your uncle quotes it so good in the book, and I've talked to Dallas about this. It's like he uh he goes to the face off to play forward, and he goes to Gretz. He goes, Gretz, where do you want me? And Gretz looks at him with a big smile. I was like, well, normally in the stands, but I guess So it's just like one of those things. But obviously, it's cool to like know that he obviously played for your team growing up too there. But two other questions for you here. So one is kind of a two-parter. I always like to ask guys this, like, have you thought about like how long you want to play for? Just kind of taking it year by year, maybe see how it is with family stuff, with your body, all that. And then have you thought also about life after hockey when you're playing, like what you'd want to do?
Yeah, I think now that I've passed 30 and I turned 32 this next October, it's definitely something that is in the back of your mind. And I think coming over here, the league's a little older too, so you start to see guys kind of towards their end of their career and transitioning into post hockey life. So I think it's something that I've thought about a lot, but and I think at this point too, it becomes a conversation with your family and your wife and kind of what makes sense for your family at the time. I I still love the game. Like I said, I'm a bit of a hockey nerd. I still love every part of it. I love coming to the rink just for practice or even video sessions. Like it doesn't necessarily feel like a job to me yet, which I think is really important. I think the minute it started feeling like a job, I think your career um, is on the downward for sure. I think you're nearing the end. So for me, I'm really grateful for that. Um, Knock on wood, the body's holding up pretty good. I think that's another consideration. I've thrown around age 35 with my wife a little bit, and as just kind of a goal. Like I could see myself playing till then. I could see myself playing past then. I could also see myself not reaching then if it's something that doesn't make sense for us. So for me, it's I think it's kind of a couple year, like a year by year thing. But right now, like I don't see the end at all. I like I said, I'm still enjoying it, and um, I think I've gotten to a stage where physically wherever my body is at, I'm still finding ways to improve. And I think at a certain point, as you're growing up, a lot of that's done in the gym. And then I think as you get older, a lot of that's done mentally and kind of learning different ways. You find ways to improve in other areas.
Your ex roommate Tyler Moore would be very happy with that answer. So loving the game, always trying to get better.
Yeah.
But no, it's obviously very true. I mean, I don't think there's any secrets out there with that. You can't treat it as a job. It has to be a passion of yours and a love. And you obviously still that it even almost gets more and more as you get older. Like you got to put more work in, more time and effort into the body and
Yeah, for sure.
making adjustments to training, all stuff like that. But no, I hope for you that like I tell everyone this, and it's obviously biased because my career was ended shorter than I hope, but I tell everyone play as long as you can, as long as you have the ability to do so. Obviously, like you mentioned, there could be family reasons, there could be a job comes up that might not have been available, like a normal job or something after hockey. So, but I tell guys to enjoy because it is one thing that when you get on the other side, like I've been retired for 5, 6 years now, and you just miss being that the guy as you mentioned, and people knowing who you are, especially here in Mannheim, everyone knows who you guys are, and also just the locker room stuff, being with the boys every day. That's where I like my job because I can still come in there sometimes and sometimes get in with you guys. There's other times where I'm kind of shut out because I'm part of the management side. But no, play as long as you can. Last one for you here. I always ask my guests this. You told me you haven't watched an episode yet, so this will be new for you. But what is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give the younger generation out there? So if you're speaking to the young athletes out there who are 14, 15, 16 years old, what's one or multiple pieces of advice you would give them?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of kids in the summers through my family's hockey school. The biggest thing I see is it's like too much hockey, which is weird coming from somebody who, it's our job now, hockey, but I see even younger, like 12, 13, they're on the ice every single day. Um, and it all summer. And then the season starts and they're playing for their club team and they're traveling every weekend. And for me, what I worry about is burnout with kids like that. Like, yeah, I know everybody's goal is to play in the NHL, but if you look at a kid like that, when he turns like I was saying earlier, I'm 31 and it doesn't feel like a job for me. Is it going to feel like a job for him by the time he's 16? Because he's been doing it every single day from the time he was 10. And then when you're 16, that's when you need to start ramping it up. That's when you need to be in the gym, training, off ice, on ice, whatever it may be, working towards this goal. And that's when I think a lot of kids are starting to go the other way. And that's going to happen in any sport, any hobby, anything. There's a split in the road where, that's why not everybody makes it. But I think a lot of kids could, and a lot of parents could prolong that, or, I think it would change if they weren't burnt out. So my advice would be just take your time, be patient. The goal is still going to be there. If you're the best player when you're 15, great. I never was. If you're the best player when you're 17, 19, 22, if you want to keep doing it and you keep improving, at some point, somebody's going to find you and there's going to be an opportunity for you. So just don't rush and play other sports, do other things, just enjoy yourself. And if it's still there, it'll be there for you.
Oh, it's very good advice. And that's actually over the series so far, that would probably be one of the more common answers is, when we were growing up, we were thrown into every type of sport known to man, and just to get out there and be doing stuff. And obviously we didn't grow up too much with the video game era, so we were always outside on the driveway, or if we came home before 8 at night, our parents would be mad because we hadn't been out, doing enough and stuff like that. So I do think, like what you said, I think today a lot of kids emphasize training too much and too long, like too early, to where it almost like consumes their life versus like acting their age and having a childhood and stuff. So I definitely agree with you there. There is a time when you can buckle down and maybe ramp up things, but especially early on, play multiple sports, enjoy being a kid, and obviously enjoy just having the passion for the sport and play it as you want. And if eventually it becomes something you want to do full time, then as you said, people will find you. And a lot of people always say too, like, hard work will pay off, and if you're good enough, like, things will open up for you one way or the other. So
yeah, it definitely sounds cliche with the hard work paying off, but it's true. And like you said, just doing it for the love of the game. I can't believe it hasn't come up, but I got to mention I had two brothers. All of us, three of us, were within 3.5 years of each other. So for me, like, my first memories were playing roller hockey with them, playing in the driveway with them, going out back to test to see if the pond had frozen, like, with them. So it was like having two best friends around all the time. And I think looking back, when the kids are so structured, they have a lesson one day, practice the next day, off ice lesson the next day. For us, it was just like, oh, you don't have practice till 6 p.m. or you don't have practice at all today. Let's go in the driveway. And some days it was like shoot pucks because we're going to get better. And some days it was just like whacking the roller hockey ball around while my brother did the play-by-play and we all pretended to be Rangers. Like, it was just one of those things, like you said, just having fun. And I think that extends the people's careers. And I think it's crazy to talk about kids and careers, but it builds that love for the game. And I think that's the most important part.
no, 100%. I'm sure you were thrown a net a couple times too, being the brother. That's always a common thing.
We all took turns, but the youngest one wound up being the goalie.
Yeah, normally that's how it works. But no, cool, man. Luke, thanks a lot for taking the time here to jump on the podcast. Hopefully, you'll have a listen there, and then you can listen to a couple episodes. I know your wife is excited to hear your story there. You said good things about her, so I guess that'll pass over. But no, thanks again. It was awesome to kind of go through memory lane there and kind of, to me, it's no wonder that someone like yourself that you mentioned grew up kind of oversized and maybe overlooked at times has gone on to have a long professional career, as you said, and very successful as well. And, I'm excited to, whenever the hockey career ends, I'm excited to see you maybe get your PGA card there, and we'll see if that works out. But no, thanks again. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And for those listening, until next week, cheers and ciao.